Even from the start, I thought the black car was dangerous. I saw it for the first time around a month ago. A long, sleek thing with blacked-out windows so that you could not see inside or catch even the slightest glimpse of who was driving. The paint job on the bodywork was exactly the same. The entire thing was covered in a deep, glistening black that looked wet, as if it had been dipped in oil. The color, and this strange liquid sheen, made the vehicle look to me like an orca gliding slowly through the water as it surveyed its prey, waiting on a slab of pack ice. Certainly, that first night, when the car slowed and eased almost silently along the tarmac beside me, I felt almost instantly as if I was being hunted. I first saw it on my short walk back from the station. The path to my place from where I stepped off the train was wooded on one side, the trees hanging low over an old iron fence. By the time I headed back, it was usually dark. Most of the path was lit with the orange glow of the street lamps, whilst the other side was just road. A road that was usually quiet around the time that I was walking alongside it. On most days, I would be passed by maybe 1 or 2 cars during the entire 10-minute walk, one of whom would be someone who had gotten off the train at the same stop as me, and another that was probably heading from the long road that stretched over the hills, leading off to the next town. How many times the black car had passed before, I don't know. Maybe every day, maybe never before. It's not the kind of thing that you take note of until the car slows down. On that first night, instead of zooming past me as most of the cars would, or beeping its horn as some of the fellow train passengers might as they passed, this car instead rolled to a cushioned crawl, so that it was barely moving, only a foot behind me. It would continue like this, inching along in a slow roll until it came almost up alongside me. Then it would keep pace, as if a friend was driving with me and chatting to me out of the window as I walked. But this was not a friend, and the blacked-out window showed only my own face reflected. On that first night, I did not look at the windows. Instead, I stared straight ahead and up the pace of my walk, trying to speed off and leave the car behind. That, of course, was stupid, because as I sped up, so too did the black car and whoever was watching me from inside it. Eventually, I reached the corner, and the car suddenly sped up, firing off with a screech of the tires. I continued on the short distance to my home and locked the door firmly behind me. Had this incident been a one-off, then perhaps I would not have been so worried. But when the car was there, waiting for me the following night, I felt my stomach flip. As I hurried down the deserted path, the car again rolled slowly alongside me, keeping pace with my every step, undoubtedly following as someone inside, concealed from view, watched and surveyed me with hidden eyes. Once again, as I reached the corner, the car sped up and zoomed away. This continued for almost a week. I thought about getting another train, of switching up my schedule to avoid the car, but that was the last train out to my village. If I did not catch it, then I would be stranded in the city until the following day. I thought of ordering a cab from the station, but it seemed ridiculous to take one for such a short journey, and when I finally did try, I found the drivers unwilling to take me, because it simply wasn't worth it. Finally, I decided to face the problem head-on. I took a hammer with me in my purse. Leaving the station, I walked as usual and allowed the black car to pull up alongside me. Then I turned to face the driver's side window and pulled out the hammer and held it aloft. "What the hell do you want?" I screamed into the mirrored window. "You leave me alone, or I swear to God I'll smash through this window and then through your stupid skull." In response to my screams, there came another sound. Not from the car with the blacked-out windows, but from behind me, from amongst the trees and thick line of bushes, near the small gap in the fence. Turning quickly around, I was just in time to see a figure wearing a thick balaclava, sprinting away from the tree line and out across the fields into the distance. When I turned back, the window of the black car had been rolled down. Inside was a woman of around 40 years of age. She looked terrified. "I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to frighten you. It's just... there's a man. I see him each night standing there by the gap in the fence, and I wanted to be sure that you got home okay. I didn't say anything because I wasn't sure if you knew him or he was waiting for you, but I don't know. It didn't feel right. So I thought if I drove alongside you, you'd be safe." I didn't know what to say. Eventually, I found the words and thanked her, looking back again and again to the gap in the fence and the stretch of fields beyond. I still do that same walk, at the same time and without my black car chaperone. Nowadays, though, I keep the hammer with me. I never saw or met my stalker in person. The whole thing was digital, but it was no less terrifying. For a short period in the early 2010s, It seemed like everyone was blogging, whereas nowadays, blogs find an audience by appealing to the Google algorithms or stuffing their content with SEO-friendly words. Back in the day, people would just write about stuff that appealed to them or that had happened to them during their day. For some folks, the blog was a way to share their knowledge or interest in a specific niche hobby or topic. For others, it worked almost like a diary, where the blogger would record their activities and thoughts in a public forum rather than in a beautiful little notebook. For Amy Claire, her blog was both. Unfortunately, the activities and thoughts she recorded daily on her blog were not her own, but mine, and the niche hobby and interest that she wrote about was me. I first heard about the blog from a friend of mine named Angela. We had met up for coffee for the first time in what seemed like months, and I was really looking forward to catching up. As she took her seat, however, Angela made a very strange comment. "So, how are you doing then, Dawn? Or should I call you Amy?" I stared at her blankly, wondering whether I had misheard. "I'm sorry, what?" I remember saying as she gave me a wry, knowing smile. "Oh, come on," she said with a laugh, patting me gently on the hand. "Everyone knows it's you. I mean, you didn't even bother to change other people's names." Again, I stared blankly, slowly shaking my head. "Honestly, I haven't the faintest clue what you're talking about." The exchange continued like this for a few more rounds, with Angie insisting that I could just admit it, and me, utterly bewildered, trying to insist that she wasn't making any sense. It was only after around 5 minutes that Angie's smile began to fade, and she slowly but surely came to realize that I genuinely had not a clue what she was on about. "Holy shit," she said eventually. You really don't know about this?" "No," I said, half laughing, but also slightly concerned by the way that my find had turned a worrying shade of white. Reaching into the pocket, Angie pulled out her phone, and with a few swipes, brought up a blog page called The Strange Life of Amy Claire. At first, it just looked like 1,000 other blogs. A badly chosen font, a dull, off-brown background, and decorations of cartoon flowers. It was only as I started reading that I realized why this blog was so important. There on the first page, with the previous day's date, was a blow-by-blow account of everything I had done that day. From what I had for breakfast, through which exercise routine I did, what book I had read with lunch, and my opinions on the news stories I had seen that day. Panic rose like hot liquid in my chest. Scrolling down, I saw that there were entries, one for each day of the previous week, and that beyond a basic rundown of activities, there were also more private, intimate details. Details about my love life, about my family and acquaintances. Opinions that I had expressed about people in confidence to others that I would never in a million years have shared in public. Things that other people didn't know, that they couldn't know. How? I remember stuttering. How could somebody do this? I mean, they have my political opinions, things I've said about my boss, about my boyfriend. They know what color underwear I was wearing yesterday. How are they doing this? Angie didn't know. She had assumed, naturally, that the posts were my own, and that I had chosen the pen name Amy Claire to protect my identity, though even that would not have helped. Every other detail, barring my name, was accurate. The names of my friends, the places I worked and visited, right down to the private pet name I used with my boyfriend, that no one outside of our bedroom could possibly have known. With the coffee thoroughly ruined, Angie instead agreed to come with me to the police to report what I had found, and see what, if anything, I could do about it. At the station, the police informed me that I could send a cease and desist order, but to do that, I would need to know who was writing the blog in the first place, and who had access to such intimate details. For a moment, I honestly suspected my boyfriend, but even that would not have worked as an explanation, since there were details on there that even he didn't know, and events that he wasn't around to see. Eventually it became obvious that whoever was doing this was able to see and hear me for most of the day. This led the police to conclude that someone had clearly hacked into both my phone and my laptop. When you get targeted ads through Google, it isn't always because you've searched. It's because unless you opt out, the phone is listening, like a recorder, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and picking out words and phrases it recognizes, then giving them to advertisers. It wouldn't take much for someone to hack the same technology so that they could listen to your every conversation, the officer said bluntly. Combine that with location tracking and someone hacking your emails and the webcam on your laptop, and pretty soon they have a fairly rounded picture of your entire life and movements around the clock. Constant surveillance. It's stalking, digitally. If they hadn't published it, you never would have known. Needless to say, within an hour, I had bought a brand new phone and thrown the old one into the river. I covered the webcam on my laptop and the microphone until I had the money to buy a new one. I also decided that to get the site taken down, I would fight fire with fire. I went on the dark web and was soon able to hire a hacker who agreed to find a way into the blog where he could either delete or corrupt all of the content. Within a week, the blog was gone. Still, I can't help but feel like I now have to watch my every word and action, even in my own home. After all, I can never know who might be watching me.